So we got a 2006 Yamaha Raptor 700. This thing is pretty clean. Can't really see too many hours on it. Now, usually can tell by the frame where like a boot would be rubbing, whereas the paint is all there. Let's check the other side. Same here, slight rub, but not too bad at all. So I would assume there's not too many hours on it. There is a new gasket for the cover here and the chain tensioner here, so maybe there might be like a new cylinder or drug there, but doesn't seem to be too many hours on it. I picked this thing up like an hour away for about $3,000, but it also came with a full set of paddles and wheels, so maybe subtract a couple hundred, so probably like $2,800. You know, not too bad. I kind of like to add in the add-ons within the price. So it does have the HMF performance exhaust. It's just a slip-on. You can see it has a stock header there, but it has some of the heat wrap on the exhaust there. It's got brand new rear tires. Fronts have seen better days. It's a little dry rotted and cracking a little bit, but then again, the A-arms on the lower control arms are pretty beat up here. Not beat up, but the color is missing, like it's had a few runs in the trails. So, you know, it could be, oh, it is actually a 700R. So that's nice to know. One thing that I do know that is wrong with it is it does have a check engine light. So when I got there, they told me it ran good and everything else, no issues. And when I went to test drive it, I saw the check engine light was on. You'll see here, it'll start blinking here after a minute. Give it a little bit of time, it'll probably come on. I might have to start it for it to trigger it. Let's see if it'll do it. We'll shut it off. Usually you can tell by the how many blinks that the check engine light does. So it should be a couple slow ones for the first number, then a few fast ones following that to tell you the second number. So we'll see what it says. I did diagnose this whenever I was there, just to see what I was getting into. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 fast ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so first one's 4, second one's 6. That's 46. I looked up the code, and that indication is a problem with the charging system. And majority of the time, it's going to be, you know, battery overcharge. So it's going to be that rectifier there, or voltage regulator. That is the main issue with these that I've seen. This is my second time I'd have to be replacing one, but easy way you can diagnose it is pop the seat off. There goes the battery. So let me get a voltmeter, and I'll show you that it's climbing way higher than it should be. So let me get it all set up. All right, so you can see here, we're at 12 volts, almost 13. That's a good battery. Let's give it a start. and we'll watch it climb. Yeah, as you can see, it climbed up way higher than it should be. It should be about 13 or so. And yeah, it should be about 13 and a half or so charging. Shouldn't really go over 14. So that is the issue right there. That's how you can diagnose it. Also, another way you can diagnose it is you could unplug the rectifier and that check engine light will probably go off. I don't know if that's safe for it, but that's another way you can tell. So that's the only issue with this that I've seen. I don't see any oil leaks. I do want to check the coolant. It might need a flush because that looks pretty brown. Hopefully there's no oil mixing in there. I would assume not, because that cylinder looks brand new and hopefully it's a new top end. You can really tell from this side. You know, the change of color from the head. It's a pretty good indication that's probably a new rebuilt cylinder or top end, hopefully. So I diagnosed it and everything, so that's the only issue here. Everything else works fine. I do want to check the air filter, see if I have to order up a new one, or maybe I can clean this one up if it's K&N. Yeah, it's pretty clean. A little bit of stuff here, but not too bad. I'll get it all cleaned up in there, but it does need a good power washing. So I'm gonna leave this on. So I can get it power washed here in a little bit. But, so the first thing I do wanna do is get that new rectifier on there. So for the rectifier, it's just those two bolts there. Unplug it, put the new one in, and the check engine light should go off on its own when it is fixed. Here is the used one I've got. I got it from Power Sports Nation. This is the site I usually get all my used parts from. You know, OEM. That's the best prices there. You know, they're 100% guaranteed that's probably gonna work, because I believe they test them. They test the parts out, if I'm not mistaken. But that's where I get all my OEM used parts from. You know, you can find them on eBay as well. But Power Sports Nation, that's the #1 site that I usually use for stuff like this. I don't like to go aftermarket on, you know, parts as in rectifier, anything to go with the motor. You know, cylinders. No, I use Wiseco. I use good quality parts. It's, you know, if it's something small, maybe like a you know, air filter or something, I'll go on a little cheaper end there, or like, you know, starter, I'll go with that call trick or something like that, or niche, however you say it. But Power Sports Nation is what I got this part from. This is the second time ordering from them. Rectifier wise, I've also ordered a water pump for this, or for a 700 in it. You know, came out pretty well. So let me get this plug out of here first. It can be a pain to get out. There we go. There's that. A couple of 10 mils. Boom. Let's get out of there. Get that out of there. All right. So there is the old one that is bad, You can't really tell from the outside, but it is bad. So here's a used slash new one. This is actually from a Grizzly 660 Yamaha. And it actually works for the 700s as well. So you can see, it is the same thing. Same exact plug. You know, it'll match up, it'll work. So, let me get this bolted on, and we should be good. Plug should go right on. Should hear a click, boom, and that is done. So let's crank it up again, and we're gonna see if the check engine light comes on. Well, it's still gonna be on. Let's see if it stays on. Yeah, so it's gonna be blinking right now, but when we crank it over, it should go off. Like I said, it'll clear itself if it's fixed. So. So that is fixed. Like I said, it'll clear itself. No more high voltage spikes. You know, with that being the issue, you don't want to run the risk of, you know, frying your ECU, frying up your headlights. You know, the battery end up going bad because it's overcharging. Frying up a bunch of stuff. So you could mess up a whole lot of stuff on your quad. It's all electrical. You know, you gotta regulate the voltage, and that's one of the things that really is important when it comes to these quads. So that is fixed. Next thing I want to do is, I guess, clean this thing up. I do want to check the oil. I checked it before, but I believe it needs an oil change. Yeah, it's a little dark, not too bad. I don't have any oil right now, but I believe I do have the filter in stock. So, with me not being able to do the oil change, I'll just leave that be for now. I do want to check the coolant. So, I'm gonna pop off this hood piece here. Notice those two Allens. Pop that off. Should be able to push up on this little plastic piece and it'll come right out. Then your coolant cap for your radiator is right underneath here. So we'll check that, see if it needs to be drained and, you know, ran through. So that is not looking good right there. I don't like that color, but we're gonna see what the radiator looks like. Couple bolts right here. Should come right up. There she blows. All right, radiator cap is right here. Pop that open. It actually looks really good. It's ice and like green, so that's topped off. I couldn't check that when I was there because the bolts were there and I couldn't take the cover off, but you know, this one's good. But I am gonna drain that external tank. So I'm gonna put this back on. just like so. Let's just go to this side and I'm just gonna drain it out of here. Small hose clamp. I wonder if I can. Alright, so I got a water bottle here. Let's see if we can catch it and see how it looks. It looks pretty dark. That definitely looks different from what's in the radiator. So I'll just remove this, top it off in the radiator. Or I'll just remove this fluid and then top it off inside here. This is just pretty much just the overflow. Whenever there's too much coolant in the radiator, it'll just overflow into the. That's essentially why it's called an overflow tank. Because it raises up in the when it's too much coolant, it goes into the overflow tank, and that's where this goes. So I'm pretty sure the coolant was probably exchanged in the radiator in the system, but this just wasn't. They just left this like it was, and we're gonna swap it out. Just because it wouldn't hurt to have new in there. As you can see, it is pretty nasty. We'll just run some in there real quick. All right, let's get this going in there. Looks like there's some crud in there. Let me get that popped off. Yeah, there's some nasty stuff in there. Look at that, it all came to the top right there. You can see it in there. Nasty. You knew you worked in the shop when you got one of these. Anyways. Look at that. Oh, that's like a mouse. That's like a dead mouse in there. Or something. As you can see, that was like a leg right there. That is crazy. Oh yeah. I think it was like a mouse. Oh no. Yep, that was a mouse. That is disgusting. Ooh, that was gross. Yeah, see? That was up in there, ain't that crazy? I never seen that. All right, let me get this back on. We'll fill it back up. Good dog. Yep, she's tight. All right, let's put this back on. Yep, that'll slide back on. That's good. Now let's top her off with fresh fluid. There we go. So that'll do it. She's topped off now. Put the little cap back on. Just like that. She is ready. This is nasty. Oof. All right, so we got the air filter box plugged up. Let's give it a quick wash. See if this white comes back and if it's not stained. If it's stained, you know I've got the magic erasers, which really do help with the white. So I'll show you all that too. A little before and after of the white. You can tell the difference. But let's get it all washed up. So you can see, cleaned up pretty good. Motor's pretty nice, clean. You know, pretty much just takes off everything that's kind of residue-ish on there. So, as you can see, the white plastics, it's a little bit of staining in the white here. You know, I got even close with the pressure washer and it was not taking it off. But I tell you what, I think magic erasers would take that right off. I'll show y'all. So here's a close-up. I'm gonna get a close-up after I'm done with the magic eraser. You know, you can use the magic eraser on, you know, the motor, the little heat shield for the exhaust. You can use it for the wheels. You can use it for the exhaust. You know, cleans up pretty much anything you put it on. You know, the frame. You know, cleans up a lot. So I'll show y'all here in a minute. Just got done magic erasing. So you can see it looks a whole lot better. So you can pick up those magic erasers on Amazon. You can buy a bulk of them for pretty cheap. So I just got the cheap ones and they work pretty good. Probably just as good as the expensive ones. You know, Mr. Clean or something like that. But up a few photos to show you some photos I got of it after it's cleaned up. It looks really good. You know, it starts right up. So you can see here. Yeah, no more check engine light. Runs very smooth. So this thing is all done. 3,000 bucks for a 700R, not too bad. You know, I decided to change the rectifier or voltage regulator, whichever you want to say. You know, did that little coolant flush on the little external tank there. And it could use an oil change, but you know, it's not all the way there yet. I don't even have the oil yet, so. This was pretty much all complete. Very nice quad. All the lights work. Brand new rear tires. HMF exhaust. So I got more stuff coming. Just stay tuned. It might be here in a couple weeks until I can upload again. You know, I gotta jungle this with you know, my day job, so just bear with me. And I'll not be out here in the heat trying to get a video out for you. But it's also nice to document things. So this one's all done. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like. I don't really mind. Leave a comment. You know, that's fine.